Alright, I'm back with another Destiny 2 video, and see Evie's helping me out here today. I posted my review of the campaign yesterday, which was full of spoilers, and then I posted my written review today, which was not full of spoilers, of Renegades. Generally speaking, I like it. I think it's done a lot of good things with the Star Wars collab being less annoying than I thought it would be. Activities, weapons, things like that. My biggest complaint is that the story seemed really rushed because of the size of the expansion. But we are moving on to fully bad news today because this has to be covered. The player count for the peak of Renegades is not good. It peaked at 71,000 players, concurrent players on Steam at launch day. That is down from 108,000 players for the Edge of Fate launch, which was down from 314,000 concurrent players for the final shape. We always knew that things were going to be declining in the post Light and Darkness era. Hopefully not as much as they have been, but I can't say I'm super shocked about any of this. Particularly, not to toot my own horn, but I've predicted essentially both of these peaks because you can just use past data to figure out where things are going to go based on the current player count before these expansions launch. If you track really the current player count before each of these expansions, it equates to about around a 3 times multiplier, really sometimes less, where this time around there were about 23,000 peak players for content in the previous month, and that tripled to 69,000, and now we're at 71,000 for the real numbers. So here we are. I was wondering if Star Wars would boost it above that prediction. I said maybe it could go as high as 80. I did not think it would top 100, and it has not. I do not believe it's going to top this over the weekend. That is not really how these launches work, especially if they launch on a Tuesday. If it launched on a Friday, maybe, like, if people just kind of kept rolling into it. But for Destiny expansions, that doesn't really happen for the most part. So I think this is going to be the ultimate peak. People are always like, oh, you're citing Steam charts. Oh, it's negativity. I'm so sick of Steam charts. Like, shut up, man. I'm tired of this shit. Like, I don't know, like, you got to be pretty dense to not understand that Steam charts is relevant for the health of a game and determining whether things are going good or poorly. Obviously, there are a lot more players, and in addition to this, on console, but it's not about just the overall player count. Like, yes, concurrents are going to be a lot higher than 71,000 for the actual game. It's the trend line, and there's no reason to believe that there was also not a similar percent decline from the last expansion on console. Console doesn't matter. It's like, it doesn't matter in terms of like, oh, well, actually console numbers are higher, because like it's the same decline, like pretty much exactly. And these numbers are relevant for the health of a game. Guess what? Arc Raiders has crazy high concurrent player numbers. It's a huge hit. Suicide Squad peaked at 13,000 concurrents. It was a really bad launch, and it lasted for a year. Concord did not breach 700 players at launch, and no one was talking about how console was really boosting that. Shut down in 2 weeks. These numbers are important. When they get misused is when you have like a single player game where it's like Starfield, and then you beat the campaign, and then like 3 months later, like, oh, it lost 95% of players. Sometimes that is relevant. I've talked about how the First Ascendant has lost 95% of its players since launch, which is important for a live service game that is constantly producing new content. So context matters, and here we are. That's my little diatribe about Steam charts, because I'm so tired of people saying that we shouldn't cite Steam charts to talk about a game. It's also, in this case, important for what it means for the future of Destiny. What I have said previously is, even if this was a good expansion, I don't think it mattered, and I didn't think it was going to surpass the old concurrent player count. I thought it had to go down. A few reasons for this. I think people were not super enamored with the Edge of Fate, to the point where it's not like we enter this bold new era and everyone's really excited about it. I don't think it had that effect. I think maybe it was a little better than I was expecting, but overall, I don't think that was one of the strongest expansions, where I do think Renegades is a lot better than Edge of Fate in a lot of ways. But another problem here is now we don't have seasons. So we have essentially nothing but this mid-season update, which, as we all know, was not great. And then this farming of the portal, which was widely hated. I mean, I know a couple of people are like, yeah, the portal's okay. The portal would be okay if it wasn't the entire central focus of farming. It's kind of like that now, because there are Renegades activities to farm specifically in addition to the portal, as kind of like, two different things you can do, whereas Edge of Fate didn't have that. But you had a 6-month gap of very little content, when previously we would have seasons or episodes to fill that in. So of course you're going to keep reaching record low player counts as time goes on, and this was not helped by the launch of I want to say Rise and Iron. I already said it, didn't I? Whatever. The mid-season expansion, where people were like, oh, okay, well, this is bad. And then they left after that, and that's when we really started to get the record low player counts. Things actually did tick up a little bit during Call to Arms, which I think did engage people maybe more than people realize. I mean, it wasn't like great, but it reduced what was a pretty much nonstop decline of players. The fact is here, there is not going to be one expansion now to turn Destiny 2 around. There is no Taken King coming. There is no Forsaken coming. This is what I mean. It's like quality both doesn't matter, and the size of these expansions, I think, cannot be as impactful as really any other expansion was in the past. Nor do I think we can get past, the extreme amount of player fatigue that we have at this point. I think other games have managed to figure this out. I'm constantly in awe of Warframe, and it's consistently very high player counts over time that are double and triple Destiny at any given time, when Destiny used to always be beating it. So they've really figured it out. But Destiny has been on the decline, and it is an open question where things go from here. We're going into year 2. I don't think there are any plans being scrapped for year 2. I think they are changing a lot of things on the fly. I think we will see some big overhauls then, which I think are necessary. We didn't about this event. We didn't hear anything about like year 2 content or like the portal's dying, stuff like that. So we don't have any information on that. Maybe I can ask around, but even with that, like it's tough to know what kind of expansion, what kind of addition, what kind of story could draw people back in. I'm not going to say every expansion is going to keep, decreasing over time, but it's not really the event it once was. Like it was this, you'd build up for season and season and season, and then it would be this big launch of an expansion, and we'd see, how it was compared to past ones. And like sometimes it was a disaster like Lightfall, but even Lightfall technically has the highest concurrent player count record in Destiny, because people were excited about the game and excited to jump into a new expansion. It wasn't very good, but it didn't decrease player enthusiasm, because we were still heading toward, in the long term, because we were still heading toward the final shape. And the final shape was really good. It would have beaten that concurrent player record, but there were a lot of technical problems on launch day, so it just missed it. But now, what we expected to happen is happening. And I do fundamentally think that probably Destiny 2 should have just ended with the final shape. I think there was this demand to, crank out just endless amounts of stuff for these live service franchises, to the point where it's not healthy for the franchise, and those resources should be devoted to, what do you think I'm going to say? Destiny 3. So now it's this question of like, okay, well, how long are they going to keep doing this? And if they are developing Destiny 3, that's been like a unconfirmed rumor from some leakers that it's happening, and that's, if it is, that's like, 5 years away at the very least. So how are they going to co-develop, existing Destiny 2 content plus Destiny 3 plus Marathon for who knows how long? And like they keep getting layoffs. They're like half the size they once were. So it's a tough situation, and we're all, oh, Destiny's doomed, blah, blah, blah. It's going to keep declining. And, if not with the very next expansion, just overall, or it's going to just settle into a really low baseline of 20,000 concurrents on Steam. We don't know if this is like a total disaster or something, because even if the player count falls, we don't know what has changed with the spend on Destiny because there is way less content and things kind of cost as much as they used to. And there's, Lord knows, enough Eververse stuff. So, we don't know what profit loss here is. Sony has shown no indications of shuttering Destiny. I've heard nothing about potential for shuttering Destiny 2. Like, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. I think we are absolutely going to do a full year 2 of, what are we in, the prophecy era or whatever. Like, it's not, oh, will this decline by, X% compared to Edge of Fate, so pack it in. Like, that's not the case. I think they can and will do a lot of work to try and fix the things that went wrong. I think they know the things that went wrong, but I'm not going to always give them credit for fixing things that were going to be very obvious problems in the first place. But I think they're moving in the right direction. I think Renegades has a lot of steps in that direction. I don't think they were going to just kill the portal after 6 months, nor do I know if they need to fully kill the portal, but they've kind of just messed everything up because this whole system of like, oh, you're supposed to grind power every time and grind for tiers, and like, now they just stopped that, which I think, people didn't want, but now the farm is like, I'm getting tier 1s from the port or tier 5s on the portal from day one, and it's like just very fun. Like, it's fine. It's just very funny that we're in this situation now because the whole system was clearly broken, and then trying to fix it messed it up. I guess messed it up in favor of players and getting loot, but it's a strange situation. I am very curious when they announce what their plans are going to be for year 2. We are obviously not going to hear that for at least 3 months, I don't think. Maybe before that, if they want to engage players and make sure that something they like is coming. I expect the midseason update to be less awful than the one we just had. This is what, Shadow and Order. Why can't I think of the other one? Iron and Iron something. It did not make an impression, I'll say. They said that those were going to be like into the light size. That was clearly not the case. Some people are saying that these expansions are a little bit closer to into the light size in some regards. I think that's a bit of an exaggeration, but maybe toward that side than certainly the midseason update side. If they're continuing to do the 2 mini expansions thing, I don't know. I know they can't go back to 3 or 4 seasons a year and a big expansion, or 3 episodes in a year and a big expansion, but like, I don't know, like episodes with somewhat less stuff in them over the course of the year and then a big expansion. I guess I don't know what's viable and what's not viable going forward, but I do worry about the idea of the 2 mini expansions just never going to be able to make enough of an impact to be like, this is the moment to come back. And this was a pretty good example of a time where you would think a lot of people could be lured to return. Either lapsed players who think the Star Wars stuff looks cool. And like, I would say generally, I think most people thought Renegades looked cool going in. I know the Star Wars stuff was a negative for some people. I think it was more of a positive for most people. I don't have like hard data on that. I did poll people, and initially this seems to be pretty positively received. Saw a lot of negative comments on my video yesterday, but it's the way it is, and people in comments and stuff may be more likely to say negative things than positive, but that's still a 90% positive ratio or whatever it is. But it didn't do it. It behaved exactly the way Edge of Fate did in terms of the player count multiplier just being triple from what it was, and because what it was low, this is low too. So, we'll see what happens after 6 months. We don't know anything about that expansion. It's not going to be Star Wars. It's not going to be collab. I think they told me that I don't think they have any more collabs planned for the foreseeable future. So we're not, going to get a, Blade Runner crossover. Actually, that would be kind of awesome, but whatever, pick something, Star Trek. So that's not happening again. But then, we're going to have some pretty compelling stuff to get people to come back and to try and make sure we have not seen the, ultimate peak, and then the peaks just keep going down and down and down from here, and we're suddenly peaking at 40,000 people for an expansion. I don't think we'll get that low next time, but it's too early to predict that, and I need more numbers to come in so I can do that math after 5 months or whatever. So yeah, it's bad news. Yeah, we can see that through Steam charts. That does tell us data that is useful. and you're like, oh, you're so negative. Like, I like the expansion, but I'm not gonna spin these numbers as good, even if they're, I'm not shocked. I'm not pretending I'm shocked. This is what happened. I was hoping maybe that things would push a little higher from Star Wars. And as ever, I want Destiny to do good because I've invested 5,000 hours in Destiny and a good chunk of my career in Destiny. So don't get me wrong, I am not rooting for it to fail, as I think most of you, my loyal viewers, know. But people on Twitter and Reddit and stuff don't seem to get that after 11 years here. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.